Hello, I'm Charlie Tolhurst and welcome to a very special video. Now, at the moment, the world is living right now in the middle of a coronavirus pandemic. So today I'm going to just be doing a short update on what's happening on the coronavirus. Now, the United Kingdom in the last 24 hours has recorded around over 1,000 new cases again. However, we have had over 170,000 tests that have been conducted. And the news is to do with quarantine. Now, particularly quarantine in foreign travellers. Now, I'm just going to go over the quick news from coronavirus today. The United Kingdom and Portugal are split over the quarantine rules. People arriving in Wales and Scotland from Portugal must now self-isolate for 14 days, but rules on covering England and Northern Ireland have remained unchanged. And there are still news on that particular news as well. Now, 1,735 new cases have been recorded. It's the biggest surge since June the 4th. However, though, that is down to the likelihood of increased testing as well. As Matt Hancock said earlier today, that they're trialling a new 20-minute test, which could be a game changer as well. The boss in charge of the coronavirus testing systems apologised after it emerged UK labs would struggle to keep up demand. So people were asked people had to travel hundreds of miles to get a test, and it wasn't great. This person called David Lidlewin was offered a test in Blackburn when he lives in Southwark. However, though, he said that I had this directly to a test centre 250 miles other side of his home. I thought I'd entered that location only to get needless. I substituted a home testing kit, despite 3 automated emails. Tape the test yet to arrive. I'll do the test. I think it's ridiculous. Lucy Evans, who lives in Poole, said on the south coast she was offered a test 220 miles away in Oldham and Blackburn. She tried again and was offered on the Isle of Wight. I tried 14 times, and by the time I tested, my symptoms had disappeared. Lucy tested negative for COVID on Tuesday. Lisa lives in Plymouth and tried to get a test for a 14-year-old son. She was offered a test 688 miles away in Inverness. People are not going to travel that way for a test. You just to make stops, and the way you could be spreading the virus. She eventually got a test locally and her son was tested negative. This is a huge issue with testing capacity, and I do think the government will have to apologise for all the shortages. And it's a big issue here because testing is what we need to track down this virus. You need to test, trace and isolate the contacts. And I mean, I'm going back to college tomorrow, so I want to be careful who I'm around. But we need everyone to be on their best issues. If you're going out, whether it's to a workplace, whether it's going out to work, whether it's going out anywhere, you need to always remember to practice social distancing wherever you can. It is extremely important, and we really want to save lives. It's a big issue here. Now, as for more coronavirus news, whilst I'm here, I'm just going to quickly now. Schools asking children to wear face coverings if there's no local lockdown in communal areas. There's been another report here. 100 schools have asked to wear face coverings to telegraph the special guidance, despite which only states in some schools pupils being asked to wear masks during lessons. That's very strict. I mean, I wouldn't want to cope wearing a face covering during a lesson. I would certainly wear it if I was out in a communal area, but not in a lesson as well. So it's going to be very interesting there as well. Mexico eyes an October start for the Russian coronavirus vaccine. We all know what happens with that vaccine. Has it been successful, Sputnik V? We don't know. Northern Ireland's finance minister calls for an extension to the furlough scheme. Northern Ireland executive supported Colin Murphy's proposal on extending the furlough scheme. Robert Pattinson's also tested positive for COVID-19, causing the production of the Batman movie, The Batman, to be paused and postponed. South Africa healthcare workers protest against working conditions due to alleged corruption. Israel to impose partial national lockdowns to battle an infection surge. The health official Runzirigamu said it was facing a pivotal moment trying to contain spread with some 3,000 new cases in a daily with a population of 9 million. As well, Portugal was added Scotland to the quarantine list as well. We just heard that news as well. Nicola Sturgeon's also criticised attendees for a house party in Mithileyton as well. In some news there, travellers furious after paying to avoid Portugal quarantine that didn't happen. There's been 95 new cases in Ireland that's been reported as well. France have also unveiled a £100 billion stimulus package to help kickstart flagging economy. The package is to help boost the economy and keep the recovery moving. Funds on the way for green projects, tax cuts and employment support after the country's economy shrank by 13.8% in the second quarter thanks to the COVID-19 lockdown, which of course is an unprecedented thing. US health officials and state counterparts asking statements to prepare to distribute vaccines as early as October. Documents put online by the New York Times show the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, the Federal Public Health Agency, is preparing one of two vaccines for COVID-19 to be limited quantities by then. Could this be before the election? I wonder if that's a very optimistic. UK also recorded a further 13 deaths today from COVID-19. It takes the total to 41,514. Of course, that's within 28 days of a positive test. US unemployment level drops but the lowest since before lockdown. Initial claims for state unemployment fell by 130,000 to a seasonally adjusted 881,000 for the week ending August, however, though, there's due to more change as many people are still working from home as well. Cambridge United to host England English football's first professional matches with crowds since the coronavirus outbreak. Fulham's under-21s will have 2,500. There'll be 1,000 spectators for Fulham's under-21s on Tuesday, and then 2,500 will be watching a League 2 fixture against Carlisle United. Norway have also imposed a 10-day quarantine from Italy and Slovenia. Mexico leads the way with the number of healthcare workers that have died. It's now 1,320 deaths since the lockdown there. And also, so yes, it is not great there, certainly, that more quarantine measures have been brought in. Denmark has recorded its highest number of new cases since April. 626 new cases have been recorded over there. And also, former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi has announced that his wife has now officially tested positive for coronavirus. And also on London's Underground appeared to be slightly busier this morning, but Britain's still opting to work from home over the returning to the office as the COVID-19 pandemic continues. So there. And the number of close contacts reached by NHS Test and Trace is now down. Some 69.4% of close contacts people tested positive as well. However, though, during the last week, that was only down to about 30%. So the figure is certainly not going. Spain will be extending their furlough scheme for as long as necessary. And also in the final bit of news today, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and his family have announced that he tested positive for corona. Johnson announced their diagnosis in an 11-minute video on Instagram Wednesday. The actor says he was shocked after hearing the positive test. He called the ordeal one of the most challenging and difficult things we've ever had to endure. The actor, along with his wife, Laura Hashin, and his two young daughters contracted the virus but are now recovered. He says now his daughters bounced back after having sore throat for a couple of days. But for Johnson and his wife, he said they both had a rough go. So it's nice to see that Dwayne Johnson is back now. And he's recovering from the virus. So, It's certainly a great thing to see. And that's all the latest news from coronavirus. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Goodbye.